everyone, and welcome to the weekly podcast brought to you by the San Joaquin Tribune in coordination with volunteering organizations like Six of Manteca, Six of Mountain House, and Six of Tracy. I'm your host, Gurtej Atwal, and today I have Parminder Sandhu as our guest. He has Bachelor's of Engineering from Guru Nanak Dev Engineering College in Ludhiana. Then he did his Master's of Engineering in information system security. So we will learn about system security. This is a term we all hear in our day-to-day lives because it's an internet world. We all use this internet in our day-to-day lives in internet technologies. So we will learn about what kind of issues are there in system security, what is system security, and if a school going or college going student wants to pursue their career towards this system security field, what kinds of opportunities they have. Now, I will request Parminder Sandhu to please share some more about him.
Thanks, Gurtej. Thanks for having me today. So today we're going to talk about like system security. So to give you a little background about myself, 12 years. So as you said, like I have done my engineering. I have master's in engineering from university in Canada, and I have been working in the information security field for almost like 10 years now. So system security, like when we talk about it, so we are all connected to internet these days. So our day-to-day life depends on internet. So the technology brings in the good things and the bad things at the same time. So when we are relying on a lot of technology these days, so we come across a lot of issues when it comes to our security, our privacy, and all those sort of things that comes with this. So I think it's a good opportunity to learn about like what fields like we can go into like to pursue our career, and also I think that this will be a good opportunity to just learn basics about like what security, how security impacts us on a day-to-day life. So I think it will be a good discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Parminder. So in computer or information technology field, we hear this word pretty often, cybersecurity. So what is cybersecurity, and what are the security breaches that in our day-to-day life we see in the information technology field? Can you please share some about that?
Sure. Yeah. So when we talk about like a cyber security, because when we talk about cyber is all the stuff that is connected with each other. So we talk about like all the stuff that we see day-to-day life, like for example, our cell phones, our computers, iPads, or even like the devices that we use at home, like for example, our security cameras, or even the day-to-day life, like for example, our refrigerators, TVs, and all those are all connected through internet. So when we talk about security breach, so it's a security breach is kind of like as a break-in. Like for example, if somebody, just to take an analogy, so in case somebody breaks into your house and then like get into your house without your permission, that is a security breach. And in case the person or the looter who have got into your house, he takes some of the documents or your personal property and go back out of your house, that is a data breach. So when we talk about like our day-to-day life, so in case if you get your data is lost because of from dependency on some companies that we rely on, that is a data breach that we see on a day-to-day basis. So when we see like on a personal life, like when we talk about a data breach, we might not think like how much it might impact you. But if you go to the next slide, so I want to give a little more details about some of the breaches that we have seen, like how much data is lost with some of the big the data breaches that we have seen in the past. Like if you look at the top numbers, so the Aadhaar, which is basically the documents which save all the information about your personal, like your name, date of birth, your where you live, and all your bank information is all connected in India. So they use the Aadhaar cards. So in 2018 itself, 1.1 billion Aadhaar card numbers were actually compromised. So people might not know how might it impact you, but the breach that we're looking at right now is that 1.1 billion people have lost their personal information to somebody. So somebody can misuse that information for some bad deeds as well. So the same goes for other companies, like, for example, if you look at the Marriott, so all the hotel chains, and Twitter, the companies like, for example, that we use on day-to-day basis, like our Chipotle, Panera Bread, and also Facebook, Google. All these companies have seen the data breaches in the past. And when we talk about the data breach, it directly impacts a customer or the user because his or her personal information is also lost along with these breaches. And in the next slide, I just want to talk about, like, from the financial point of view, it impacts us a lot as well. So, for example, the statistics from Forbes in 2019, so they had like a general, like an average cost of a data breach or the security breach per country. So in the United States, where we live, an average single data breach will cost a company or a government almost $8 million. So it's that much impact for every company or the user data when it impacts. Like, for example, somebody can ask, like, oh, how does, like, one breach can impact $7.9 million on an average? So that's a valid question. But if we look at the customers' confidence in a company, like, for example, if you're using a banking service from a big bank and the bank got breached and your data is lost, so you might not lose your money per se, but the company will lose confidence in the customers will lose confidence in the company, and they might go away from the company, and it also directly impacts their, for example, their stock price. So this $8 million, it might look like little exaggerated, but if we look at the total impact for a particular company or the government, it's even more than that. So that's how it's calculated based on, like, on an average, but the data breaches cost a lot of money for the company. So that's why we have been seeing a lot of trend moving towards, like, companies investing a lot of money to secure the infrastructure so that they don't have to be in a situation that they have to pay, like, a lot of money to just come out of that data breaches situations.
So right. So now I think we have better understanding what system security is, why we need system security, because it has lots of information related to banking, related to your personal information. There are hackers, other technologies they use to steal your information to make money.
Yep.
And as we are seeing in the slides, in 2018, so Forbes, they published it. So it's a huge loss to every nation.
Yep.
So now if we talk about system security by itself, so as it is very important now in information technology field, so what are the core pillars, or how you can briefly define what system security comprises of?
Sure. So when we talk about, like, information security, so mainly, like, we call it a triad. So there are, like, three main pillars that we see when we talk about from the security point of view. So the very first thing that we talk about is availability. So, like, for example, if we take the example of a cell phone service. So in case if a company or sorry, a user is paying like $50 for the cell phone service, so the user will demand the company to have the availability of the service 24/7. So because if I'm paying $50 for my service, I want to have the service all the time. It doesn't mean that, okay, the company can shut down the service for 4 hours out of the 24 hours. So from the security point of view, the company need to maintain the availability of their service 24/7. And the second thing, it comes from mostly the banking, the side of the world. So, like, for example, when we talk about the integrity of the data, so if we say, like, okay, if my bank have $10,000 as a just a hypothetical number. So if we talk about like if I have a $10,000 in my bank, by tomorrow, like for example, if a couple of zeros from that 10,000 are gone, it will make a huge difference. Then I will lose a lot of money. So that's the integrity part of the data that I have in the bank. So in that piece, the banks have to ensure that the amount of dollars that people have in their bank should be accurate. It should not be changed by somebody who is not responsible for that particular account. So that there comes the integrity part of the data. So that is another pillar for the information security we have to focus on. And the third is the confidentiality of the data. So in case like when we talk about the security breaches, so the confidentiality of the data, like for example, if you talk about the bank, if I, for example, the same hypothetical number, if I have $10,000 in my bank, I want to ensure that only I should know how much money I have in the bank. So the banks should not disclose my confidential data to somebody else. That's the third pillar that we always talk about from the information security point of view.
Thank you, Parminder. So now we understand what system security comprises of and why it is so much important. So in our day-to-day life, we hear the news of hacking, the cyber attacks, and can you share what kinds of cyber attacks are there, or what this definition means, what this terminology means, and what kinds of solutions in one's day-to-day life they can adopt, like in their cell phones, in their laptops. So what kinds of softwares are available to protect them from those cyber attacks?
Sure. So on a day-to-day basis, like when we talk about like a security threat, so we hear a lot of like the common terms that we hear a lot is like there's a virus attack. So when we say that, okay, my system or my computer have a virus, that's the very common term that we hear on a day-to-day basis. So the number of virus attacks have reduced over time because the companies had made their software or the operating system much more like they have secured those computers like to an extent that we have seen those trends going down. But because if the company is getting wiser, the security attackers are also getting they're bringing up the games as well. So they have found other ways to attack to get the personal information or to steal the information they're not intended to. So the another term that we hear a lot these days is ransomware. So ransomware. So we'll talk in the next slide, but there's another term that we see all the time that okay, there's a ransomware attack. And the last one, which is very important, I think it's also useful for our viewers as well. When we talk about the phishing attacks, so we have seen a new trend where the phishing attacks are getting more and more complicated, and a normal person might not be able to like understand if the email or the message that they have received is a legitimate message. So it might pertain to a phishing attack. So those will get some examples in the next slides. But like coming back to the ransomware, so in the ransomware, the basic terminology means like if I steal or if I get to your system or your computer and I get to your data and lock it. Like for example, if I steal your data and put it in another folder and only I have access to that folder. So right now I am holding your data hostage and I demand money that okay, if you want to get your data back, you have to pay me, for example, $10,000. So this is the attack that we have seen like more and more coming these days. Like for example, we have seen a lot of cases because we have done some seminars in the past, even in our Punjabi community. So especially the small businesses, whether it's coming from like truck drivers, like the people who have companies. So they have seen where they have gone through this type of situation where data has been taken hostage and attackers have asked for ransom to give back their data. So this is like a new trend that we have seen in the recent future, in the recent past as well, about this ransomware attacks that has been affecting a lot of users. And
Where if we, as you have mentioned, that small businesses are being targeted as well. So then, what kinds of avenues does small business has? So where they can report these kinds of attacks, or what kinds of options they have in their hand?
so so in this case, like there are a lot of like cybersecurity laws that the United States have passed, which kind of like protects a lot of users. But the situation these days is that a lot of these attackers who are actually attacking these type of data or taking hostage these type of data things. So basically, they are hiding, because there are a lot of things like, for example, if I have a VPN connection. So VPN connection is basically you will hide your identity. So I can log into a system and I can show that I am logged in from some other country, even though like I'm sitting in the United States. I can mask that I'm sitting somewhere else. So there are a lot of ways the attackers have gone so sophisticated that they can hide their identity and hide their location as well. So it's really challenging these days for the United States law enforcement as well to track down and identify where that attack was coming from. So coming back to your question, the most important thing is we have to be very careful when we go like browse the sites, and because there are a lot of information on these websites where the companies provide like advertisements, but within those advertisements there are a lot of links which we usually think that okay, it's okay to like click on some button and let me check this. So that click of button might cause you a lot of trouble. So that's why we have to be very careful when we go to browse internet and also like look for other sites and stuff. So let me give you another example. Like for example, this virus thing, as I said, we have seen that a lot of in the past, but this trend of the virus attacks have died down a little. So we are seeing less and less of these virus attacks. But the main thing that I want to correlate will be in the next slide, which is the phishing attacks. So the phishing attacks, because as I said, the attackers or the hackers that we say, so they have gone so sophisticated, they have found so many like clever ways to trick you to get to click some items that will cause you a lot of pain. Like if you look at this slide, we might have seen a lot of like these type of random emails that we get from like if you look at this, the email, it looks like it's coming from a Costco, and it says, oh, like unfortunately the delivery of your order blah was canceled and we regret, and please fill this form and send it back to us so that we can refund you or we can give you a discount or those sort of things. So the mental model of a person, even though deep behind within his heart he knows that he or she have not purchased recently anything from Costco from online, but they will have that tendency that let me check, let me click on that button and see like maybe I will get some money back from this type of situation. So those are the like psychology these attackers play around with. So if you look at on the top of the from section of the email, so as a name of that particular the email that came from, it says it's a Costco shipping agent. But if you look closely at the actual address of the email, it's some manager at cbcbuilding.com. So it clearly says that email didn't came from Costco. But because it's our psychology, because we are curious to see like, oh, I have seen this email that, okay, and we have seen a lot of examples like, oh, you have won a $10,000 prize. Please click on this button to claim the prize. So it's a psychology that people will be kind of like alluded to, like click on that button, and that button will take to like a different page, and then they will ask like fill in the information that they need, and then they will use that information to steal that information from you. So these are some of the examples that we need to be very careful from the user point of view. As I said, the attacks have gone so sophisticated, so we need to be very careful when we look at the emails or the text messages and whatnot.
As the security it becomes more and more robust, so the attackers they are finding new ways from virus. Now they are finding these fishy emails because this is happening every day on social media, on the banking accounts, or these kinds of emails. So every user has to be cautious to read from where the information is coming. So the other thing is, so user has their own device, they have their own laptop. So as to a house, they can just lock it, and then now we have electronic locks or everything. So what kinds of mechanisms users can try to preserve or lock their information from these attacks?
Yeah. So basically, like when we talk about the the very basic stuff that we use on a day-to-day basis is a password. Like for example, for every single item that you use, so there is a password, whether it's for your laptop, whether it's for your email, whether it's for your any of the services that we are using. So if you click on the next slide, maybe. Yeah. So for example, there's like a funny picture I put in there. So if you look at it's a door knob, and the door knob have a Cheetos put in there. So in case, like if you think that, okay, this will save me from the intruders, I do have a lock in there, and I have placed the lock knob and with the Cheetos in there. But if we look closely, it will not protect me from the intruders, because somebody can just push in and then he will be able to get into my house. So it's the same thing that's happening for the passwords as well. So the password is the very basic the security mechanism that we use on a day-to-day basis. But the problem is we use a very, very simple passwords for every account. So most of the time what we have, so if you click on the slide again, please. So yeah, so what we have seen is mostly, even if you look like locally in our houses as well, so like we have seen people use one single password across all their banking information, their emails, their other like work related accounts. All those sort of things are because they want the common excuse that we have seen is, oh, it's too difficult to remember a difficult password. But that will not help us, because in case somebody's able to guess a simple password, he or she, the attacker, will be able to get to every single account that you have. Like, for example, your banking, your emails, your business accounts, all those sort of things. So that's why the very common practice that we lack, but we should be looking at, is we should have a strong passwords for all the accounts. And most importantly, we should also use different passwords for different accounts. So for example, if we have like two bank accounts, like for example, one we have in Wells Fargo and the second one in Bank of America, we should also try to have a different passwords for your two different bank accounts. The same goes for your emails, so all the business accounts. And also another thing that a lot of companies have come up with is a multi-factor authentication. So for example, if you put a password, they will also generate a token that, for example, they will send you a code in your text. You have to put in the code, and then it will allow you to log in. So we should use multi-factor authentication wherever possible. And the common excuse that we see on a day-to-day basis that, oh, how can I remember so many passwords? Or I cannot remember complicated passwords, or I cannot remember like 20, 30, 50-digit passwords. So in that case, there are a lot of like softwares that they're out there. Like for example, they're called password managers. So we should be using those password managers so that we can save our passwords there. and we should also change the master password for those password managers on a regular basis, like once a week or once a month at least. So this is a very important thing that we lack, but we should be looking at on a day-to-day basis.
Right. So password is very important so as to update one's softwares, because those companies, they are doing a tremendous job at the back end to upgrade their softwares on kind of to protect you from these fishy emails or the hackers activities that will steal your personal information.
Yeah.
Now, as it's a social media world, everybody is using social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and they're putting lots and lots of information there, their personal information, their family's information. As now we have learned, there are mechanisms, or the hackers, they are getting refined, and it is getting harder and harder for the law enforcement agencies to track them or to deter their attacks. So, what is your thought on that? So, how the social media trend sharing all the information, and how that can be protected, so users can protect themselves?
Yeah. So that's a very good question, because there's another thing that as a normal user, we should also like think a little bit more closely, especially like when our kids are using these social media platforms. So because a lot of like these social media platforms, they do not charge us money to use their platform. So like, for example, if I'm using Facebook, I do not pay Facebook any money to use their service. So all the money that they are generating, or the money that they are getting as a revenue, it's all coming from our data. Because so like, for example, if you might have noticed in the recent years, so Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, these companies have gone so sophisticated. Like, for example, if you watch a single video on YouTube, for example, if you like funny videos, so if you have watched maybe like a couple of videos today, the next day you will start seeing a lot of like suggestions or recommendations that, oh, these are like another related videos you might want to see. So the artificial intelligence is getting so sophisticated, it's reading users' mind, basically. So even it's like programmatically being done, but it's trying to understand what your taste is. So that, like, for example, there's another thing that you might have seen. Like, for example, if you Google, if you like browse for shoes, okay, you want to buy some shoes, automatically on Facebook, you will start seeing the advertisements for the shoe companies. So it's all interconnected. It's all coming from the data that we share. And so there's another thing, like this is from their business perspective. But there's another thing that we have seen, that we share a lot of personal information that we might not be like we might not know that, okay, we are sharing that information unintentionally. So for example, if I have a friend list, and if I'm sharing where I'm studying, where I've gone, in the recent past, like where I have gone for a vacation, what are my favorite books, what are my favorite, like what type of music I like, and what does where do I live, and who my family members are. So all this information is gathered, and they will try to like profile you. So like, for example, if you have put in the information that, okay, what type of music you like, so they will try to target ads based on the information that you have put in place. So that is a good thing on one side, but it can also be very dangerous on the other side, because people might use targeted advertisements to manipulate your thought process as well. So like, for example, when we talk about our United States election, so we have seen a lot of like news that, oh, there was a lot of attacks from different countries which were targeting specific demographic within the United States, and they will run ads specifically for one political party, which will polarize the people. based on their taste and based on the demographics. So this is very, very like an edgy topic. So we need to be very, very cautious because our kids who are going to these social media sites, they might be targeted for the phishing attacks. There are a lot of like people creating fake accounts that they can like lead our teenage kids to do some harm, because we have seen like anybody can create a like Facebook account and pretend to be the other gender that he or she might not be, and then they will try to lure our kids into like discussions, and then maybe into a lot of bad things as well, into drugs and sex trafficking and those sort of things. We have seen a lot of like uptick in those type of issues recently, just because the misuse of social media outlets.
Yeah, no, everybody has to be aware of these. So while they are sharing the information, so that information is out there. And the other thing, now we are hearing this terminology IoT, or
Yep.
Internet of Things. Everything is interconnected. So you
Yep.
share something on one thing, you have your laptop, you have your device, you have your home has like all the keychains that are with your Wi-Fi connection, your Alexa, everything is interconnected. So you share information at one place, it kinds of one can access it through just breaking through a smaller device and hack into those. So can
Yep.
you share some about what the Internet of Things is, so how these are interconnected, and what kinds of things a person can be advised not to do online or over the internet?
Yeah, so the Internet of Things is like basically it's called IoT. So it's as you said, like there are a lot of devices that we see on a day-to-day basis in our households, which are all connected to internet. So when it comes to internet, anybody, a hacker or attacker, can go into your the home network, like which is a home internet network, I've been saying. So via a small like bulb, like for example the light bulb that we have seen, which is connected to internet. So they can hack through that bulb and get to your personal data. So as I said, the technology have both the good and bad sides. So, but we need to be cautious when we are using this type of these type of devices, that we are securing our accounts. Like for example, if I'm using a Alexa enabled light bulbs, I need to make sure that whatever company I'm using, for whether it's like Arlo or other affiliate companies, so it need to be like secure. The password should be strong, and it should not be open to the surrounding, the neighborhood people, because we have seen a lot of cases like when we have a internet connection, so it is pretty much wide open, and anybody can, most of the times, like just like a fun fact, the very common and the worst password that people usually use on a day-to-day basis is the password itself. So they will just use whatever username that they have, and they will use password as their password. So we should avoid those type of things. And if you go to the next slide, please. So we should try to like keep our personal information limited. Like we should not disclose a lot of personal information on these social media outlets. And we should also keep our privacy settings on. We should not keep it open for everybody. We should use like multi-factor authentication wherever it's available. We should also, when we browse internet, we should be little safe. Like we should not be clicking on random stuff that pops up on a browser on a day-to-day basis. And the connection, internet connection, should be secure. And we should be very careful what we download, because a lot of malware, the ransomware, all those sort of things actually comes with the stuff that we download from internet. And as I mentioned, we should be using like strong passwords. The online purchases should also be secure sites. We should not just go on internet and try to buy stuff, because that's where people try to steal your credit card or your social security information and those sort of things. And even another thing that we have seen in the recent past is that a lot of companies, they keep your information forever. Like whatever we post on social media outlets, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, whatever. So they keep your information forever. So we need to be very careful what we post. And we should also be very careful who we meet online, because as I said in the previous slides, that people can create fake accounts and they can try to be faking somebody else's identity. And that trend have spiked significantly in the recent past. So we should be very, very careful about those. And at least like we should also keep our software up to date. We should not hesitate about like updating our software on the computer, laptops, phones, and whatnot.
Right. No, thank you. And the school-going kids or the college-going kids or whoever is listening, if they find this topic interesting, because internet is growing with the 5G or 6G, all those advancements that are coming in the cell phone companies, then your Wi-Fi speed, you are having fiber to home in coming years, then you have autonomous vehicles. So internet is expanding at a tremendous rate. So does this cybersecurity field. So what kinds of options or job opportunities or avenues those students or those school or college going students have in their future?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, like there are a lot of jobs out there which are related to cybersecurity. So because a lot of companies are investing in the talent for cybersecurity, because they do not want to be in a situation that they got hacked and then their revenue drops, their customer satisfaction drops, and confidence from the customer is also dropping. So that's why there are a lot of jobs that are coming, are posted by a lot of companies. And if we look at some of the common ones that we see on a day-to-day basis, like the main for a company, for every company, there's like a chief information security officer, which is commonly called CISO. So he or she will be the main point of contact for the company, which will try to look for the security of that company as a whole. So he or she will have a lot of people working for him or her, and that's like a CISO. But apart from like other individual jobs that we on a daily basis, a forensics analyst, information security analyst, pen tester. So there are a lot of pen tester or hackers that we call. There are security architects who architect the whole security structure of the company, and IT security engineers, database security engineers, infrastructure, and network security. So basically, security covers every aspect of IT these days. So whichever stream person want to go to, so they will or they should have a job in that specific field, whether it's like database, infrastructure, network, and whatnot.
Right. No, thank you. So there are lots of opportunities and options one can look into. So now that we have learned hacking is pretty bad, so is there something kind of you can share with us some of the funny things that are related to hacking?
Yeah, so yeah, because this is like just like a fun slides that I put in place. So when we think about like hacking, so we imagine, because we have, when we see a lot of movies, we think that okay, there's a guy with a hoodie on and he is having a lot of computer screens in front of it, and he's doing a lot of like clicks on his keyboard. And then we'll see like, okay, there are a lot of numbers, 0 1s. There are some programs running on the side on his computer. And then we'll say, okay, the hacking is in progress. And then it will show that, okay, your system has been hacked. So this is how we see that this is hacking. Some of these items are actually correct, but it's not always the same. So when we talk about like from a attacker or the hacker point of view, so a lot of companies have different teams which basically do the same thing, but what we perceive to be a hacking, but they have like a different names for their teams. Like for example, when we talk about the red team, there are 3 different type of teams that companies usually have. There are red teams, purple teams, and blue teams. So the red teams will be trying to they will try to be attacker themselves. So they will try to see what attacker mentality will look like, and they will try to exploit the issues that a company might have. So they will not have a bad intention to bring down the company, but they will try to emulate this whatever the attacker will actually do. So they will do a lot of like a try to do like a code analysis, like where the weakness is in their network database or their programs are, and then they will try to do that in a secure way. And then it comes to the like a purple team. In the purple team, basically, once they get the data from the red team, they will try to analyze like what issues they have seen from the red team exercises, and then they will try to see like from the company point of view where those issues lies, so that they can fix those issues. And from the blue team perspective, it's more like offensive. Like I said, they will try to see in case if something actually goes bad, like for example, if the company is actually breached, they will try to defend the company from those type of situations. These are like the main three sections of the security teams in most of the companies. Yeah, so it's fun. It's basically from the company point of view, we call it ethical hacking because it's not actually damaging the company, but it's trying to do the same thing that an attacker would do, but they will do it for the benefit of the company, not to harm the company. So.
No, thank you very much, Parminder. Thank you for sharing the immense information about system security, because this is with us. We are using it on our day-to-day lives very proactively, and this thing is increasing with the Internet of Things. So I would encourage all the students, please explore these in further detail. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We will try to get them answers. And for our listeners, please provide us feedbacks and suggestions for the topics that you would like to listen. So now I'll request Parminder, you have some other parting words with us.
No, so thank you so much for having me today. So I think it will give our viewers a little information about what we should be doing and what we should not be doing on internet these days. So because the technology have both the benefits and the negatives at the same time. So we cannot go back to the Stone Age that we will not be using these cell phones, these computers. These are part of our life. That we cannot live without these things, but we need to be a little cautious about like how we use this technology for a betterment, and not to get like some harmful effects out of this attacks or whatever these bad things that are happening. So we need to be a little careful, but the technology is to help us, not to harm us.
No, thank you very much, Parminder. Sincerely appreciate. And to our listeners, we try to bring somebody who is among us, who lives among us, whom you see on your day-to-day basis, so whom you can correlate and ask further clarification for mentorship. And then I'll thank everybody for listening. And please do suggest us for the topics that you would like to listen in the weekly podcast. See you in the next episode. Stay healthy, stay blessed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mm-hmm.